Now I want to invite 4 museums to present. Please come up. Sergio Cervellón, Michaela Bienkowski, Julian, Judy, hi, welcome. Hello, nice to meet you. Please. Oh, no. But probably I am going to make a small change. I am not going to do so many questions just now, but I want that I'm going to introduce quickly Sergio Cervellón from Felix Art Museum. I must have my notes, otherwise I'm going to pronounce wrong. Michalina Bienkowska from Queen Louis Edith Complex Coal Mining. Julien Esborrat from Abbey Church of Payerne. And Judy Steiner from the Musée Cantonal des Beaux-Arts. And please, you could start now and present your institution.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah, I believe yes, okay. So welcome. Oh, gracias. So let me maybe start by deciphering actually the 2 names that you see on the screen right now. If you are not very much into coal mining, you may not know that, but ADIT, the word ADIT itself, it's the hydrotechnical construction that was used to drain water out of the mine. So it was kind of an underground tunnel leading the water out from the mine to the surface, and also used to transport the coal. I wanted to start with this because the name itself, it's a mystery sometimes. So why the Queen Louis Adit? Because actually the heritage site called Queen Louis Adit consists of Queen Louis mine, which is mine in Zabrze dating back to 18th century, and then the main key hereditary Adit, the full historical name. Since the 2 are intertwined and the Adit was used to lead the water out of the Queen Louis mine, among many, the complex, the heritage now, we call it Queen Louis Adit. And with this quick definition, let me pass to the second part. Coal Mining Museum in Zabrze is actually the museum that I am representing, and we manage post-industrial heritage of Zabrze. So just to contextualize quickly, we are located in Silesia region, in the south of Poland, the little red thing that you can see there. Silesia is traditionally industrial region. It is also a borderline region. So the Queen Louis mine actually was state Prussian mine at the beginning. Industrial region means we do face a lot of issues related to the closure of heavy industries and move towards smart specialization and services. I believe that those of you who come from industrial European regions can relate to that. Zabrze once had 8 working mines, now it has none. So actually the role of the museum, of us, is to safeguard this industrial heritage that sometimes is never even seen as a heritage, and to present it in a new light, shed a new light. In a glance, we manage 2 post-mining heritage complexes. One is a Guido mine, the blue thing you see on the map of the city, and the red line is the Queen Louis Adit. So what you can see actually are the undergrounds, the line there, and Queen Louis has 3 focal points on the surface. Altogether, we manage over 10 kilometers of underground routes and more than 30 buildings. about the project of the added restoration itself. It started in 2009. It took us more than a decade, 13 years, to accomplish what now can be seen as a whole. So by that we mean both underground routes available, accessible for visitors, and the buildings on the surface that constitutes kind of a complex image of the mining infrastructure from the 8th of the 19th and beginning of the 20th century. I will pass on to some more photos in a second, but as you can see, it wasn't an easy venture. The adit itself was constructed between 1799 and 1863. So actually, when the construction started, it was a pioneer venture, very modern. By the time it ended, it was already outdated, and nobody wanted to use it for too long a time. So the adit was very quickly forgotten, and the main task that museum had was first of all, to examine what exactly is there underground and what can be done with it, and then to bring the adit back on the map of the city, because many people just didn't know it even existed. We had many challenges, technical one. As you can see, many works had to be done by hand, just like the miners in the old days. It was not possible to use heavy modern machinery. The other challenge was we didn't, for example, have like exact maps. So everything had to be inspected first, and then kind of a decision whether to follow this restoration route or not had to be taken. It was also a complex financial challenge for the museum. We became kind of a masters of fundraising, per se. We gathered financiation from different sources. It was more than 50 million euros, the total of the project. So why all of this? What we saw there and what we wanted to see, you to see, and our visitors. Let me play a really quick movie. I think that this way we can dive into what can be experienced in the adit, and actually what we wanted to convey, to kind of immerse the visitor into the world of mining, but also to feel like a miner, to experience the mine, the darkness, the water, and to make it an immersive experience. Sorry for using experience so many times. Sound, I think. Okay, so now I'll just try to sum up really quickly, but my clock is not working, but I hope that I can still remain on time. We try to focus on the three essentials that I believe many of you can relate to: culture, education, and tourism. So as for the first one, the audit is accessible for tourists at any age. I dare to say we offer routes for tourists as young as 3 years old. So, and we do have various routes. One more focused on history, the other more adventurous one, more family friendly. So the thing is to attract as many visitors as possible and show them that actually what may not be considered as a pretty or attractive heritage at the first glance can be something really worth visiting and learning from that, also by learning about our region past. So as you saw in the movie, we've got also a very special route, our specialty, the underground water route, where you can travel by boat following the original audit. What you see there also are the original brick layerings, rock layerings, so everything that was possible to really maintain in the state that we discovered it was left as it was. On the surface area, the biggest one, we call it kernel zone, from the tall shaft that you can see there. It's called kernel shaft. We use it, first of all, as kind of an open air space for local communities, when they can come and without maybe visiting buildings and what's in there, but just kind of roam around freely. In the summer, we organize a lot of events there. So we try to make it an open space for local communities, so they would feel attached to this heritage, not only as something that people from outside of Zabrze come and visit, but also it's part of their past. There is a lot of exhibitions, so every building tells kind of a different story. You can really spend a whole day there. And the last very important aspect for us, education. On the former brownfields, we opened an educational park, 2 of them to be precise. And what is our goal is to have this educational lessons, classes as we call them, that are completely in accordance with the kindergarten and school curricula. So teachers can take kids to our site and spend time still not kind of missing what they should be delivering in terms of educational qualities. And yes, it was a very brief overview of what we do. You are all very welcome to come and visit us in Zabrze. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I hear? No. Okay. Thank you so much. And now, please, Sergio.
Good afternoon, Barcelona colleagues. Thank you. First of all, we are really, really happy to be here. We are located in a little village on the suburbs of Brussels, really frontiering the big capital, but still in a little green oasis. What you see here is a modern museum building and a farm. The reason for that is that we work around the legacy of Felix de Boek. Felix de Boek, who was a painter, a modernist, and a farmer. So this is a very idiosyncratic duality. And maybe also I wanted to say, you must have been reading that we have been presenting all the time as Felix Art Museum, and now you see Felix Art and Eco Museum. This has to do with the fact that when we did apply, we still didn't have made the change in our name. But this is now our official logo, and that's why I want to introduce you a bit of our story through the evolution of our logos and our mission statements, because this is actually the idea, not only about the restoration of the farm that we made, so we have like a new venue, but it is about the combination of both things. So I'll try to show you here. This is Felix the Book, already as an older man, together with his wife Marike. He is farming. What actually happened is that Felix the Book was part, as a young artist, 100 years ago, he was part of the avant-garde movement, one of the pioneers of abstraction in Belgium. Abstraction was, and I'm showing some of the paintings, some of his paintings, is not only the abstract form, like the new way of creating a new image, it is the pure time of constructivism, where it's not only a revolutionary way of making an image, but also a revolutionary search for a new kind of society. So it's not the same as the post-Second World War abstraction that could be seen a bit as a more like a decorative thing, a wallpaper sometimes, or an investment tool. This is really the pioneering period where a generation was trying to change society. When it didn't work out, because Felix the Book didn't work with galleries, for instance, they only organized themselves through cooperatives. So they were anti-capitalistic, and it didn't work out. Well, then he just said, you know what, I'm just going to live this rat race and this life to the rest of society. I'm going to claim my own grounds around my farm, and I am going to provide I'm going to be self-sufficient by being a farmer and making a painting. Now, I'm showing this not as an ego moment, just to show that our whole trajectory had to do with changing paradigms, not only of haircuts and dresses, but also about ideas on how a museum should be. And we, from the start, said we actually are more than only his art. We are also something to do with his attitude. This was the very first logo of our museum, and actually it's the logo of the building. So we're talking here about infrastructure, about being a museum, about being in the most traditional way a museum. And you could see it in a very clear form. This is from the time before I started there, and you see the ropes, you see a very traditional way of making scenery. And the mission statement at that moment was very brief, and it just actually said, this is a museum for and by Felix the Book. Felix the Book almost became 100 years, so he was present when the museum was built. This is our second logo, and you already see we changed it from Museum Felix Book to Felix. And why do we have this big X in the logo? Because that represents the two tracks, the track of the farmer and the track of the artist. This was actually just a PowerPoint, so what we are doing right now is 17 years later, the result of this idea. Because to be true, we mostly were only able to work around art and around creating a bigger renowned name around modernism. I am seeing myself as an expert on avant-garde in Belgium, because without the farm, we couldn't progress. We couldn't become this integrated heritage ensemble that we are trying to do. And you see the mission statement changed a little bit, pointing already out to the work, the home, and the spiritual heritage. Still very vague, actually, this idea of spiritual heritage. It needed a little bit more progress also in our minds to surround it more museologically. So we actually started out thinking out of a positioning diagram where we say, okay, so we have art, we have ecology, and then we oppose it to research and to participation, and made a caricature about one thing being highbrow, the other thing being lowbrow, and the different publics we have. So there were people coming to our art shows who were searching for art, for research, and then we had the inhabitants of the village who were searching just to use our green land and to do something that has nothing to do with art. But of course, we quickly realized what we need is to be at the center of all these different opposing forces. And we came out with this idea. So we have an art museum, we have the eco museum around this farm, and then we have an orchard. And it is an integrated museum because we combine movable heritage with intangible heritage. So we really start to think about the idea of how can we integrate around the inspiration of Felix's book. And we believe that these are the topics that we can address, that we can talk about. Avant-garde is a critical window on society, that period of time. Of course, with the orchard and the diversity project we have there, we can talk about sustainability and ecology. We can, and we must create a social cohesion, a connection with nature, and awareness of heritage as a bridge to a more conscious future. Also mental well-being after COVID. Of course, we all knew that. This became the new statement, where you see that we actually say all this heritage we have, we put up front to do something into society. And so it is a place where we want to create connection across boundaries of different communities. And we want to be a museum that inspires togetherness. So the goal is not anymore to protect, defend the art of Felix's book, but to put it in place to create togetherness. This is a slide I could get in trouble with if I would show it in Belgium like that, because actually what you see here is the emblem of the Flemish and of the French-speaking Wallonian side. I'm putting them together, and actually we are saying this is a place where we can come together, because we are at the side of Brussels, but we are on Flanders territory, but the only people who are living there are French-speaking, mostly 90%. So our museum was kind of like a UFO created by the Flemish government, and we are opening the doors and trying to create this togetherness through this whole concept. We want to be pioneering, we want to connect and to be connecting, and we want to be sustainable. Here, the museological result of our thinking. So actually we have art objects going through the household goods, going to the protected orchard, to go to intangible heritage. And you see, we go from objects to intangible heritage, means also going from a museum expertise in the traditional way to the participatory ideas of an eco-museum. And the big challenge will be now, how will this participatory museum, this eco-museum, because that's what it stands for, infiltrate into our art museum. And I think that we are, in that sense, a very particular and unique place. We have the art, we have the farm, we have education, we have the whole site. What you see here, we doubled the whole domain where people are creating their own needs. We have allotments due to questions of our neighbors who wanted to use the grounds. We gave it to them. There is a practicing of intangible heritage. And so what you see here is what we have. We have art, a painting from Felix's book, the archive research around this period, and we have the activities that take place at our place. So we think that at a small place, in a very local, regional site, we are able to extrapolate this inspiration that Felix's book gave us to create a new venture, a new ensemble on heritage functioning. Thank you very much, and I hope you will come.
Thank you. Thank you, Sergio. Please, Julian.
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. It's for me a pleasure to be here in Barcelona to represent the Abbey Church of Payerne for the EMYA. The Abbey Church of Payerne, so for locate the city, Payerne is a little town in Switzerland with 10,000 citizens, and you can find in this city the biggest Romanesque church in Switzerland. This church is a symbol for the city. You can find many business de l'Abbatiale, so we have a drugstore de l'Abbatiale, a kiosk de l'Abbatiale, some pizzeria de l'Abbatiale, almost 10 business de l'Abbatiale, but 60 business with the Abbey Church in its logo. So it's a symbol in the skyline. When you arrive in Payerne, the first things you can see is the Abbey Church. It's the biggest Romanesque church in Switzerland, and this church is remarkable for its luminosity and its big volumes. But it's also a problem because too much windows, too much volume, too high, not enough strong, and we have some problem in the beginning of the 21st centuries. Let's begin with a little short story about the Abbey Church. The church was founded in the 10th century by the under-Burgundy realm, but the most important person is Adelaide, the first empress of the Holy Roman Empire. She gave a lot of money and lands to the monks in Payerne, and they can live without working. They only have to pray. The actual church you can see here in the center is built in the 12th century, and you have a perfect model of Romanesque architecture and also for wall paintings, sculpture, and art of the year. It's also a church who was linked to the Abbey of Cluny in France and was a member of the Clunisian network. It's a network from 1,000 churches in Europa, from England until Turkey. And now this network is working on a candidature for the UNESCO. In 1536, there is a Reformation in Switzerland, and the church is closed. The next year, the church is used as a granary, a fire station, police station, a jail, gymnasium, and also for a bell founding. So many other utility for the church until the 20th century, when people say, oh, it's a beautiful church, maybe we should take care of this building, make some work for this conservative and so safeguarding. The first restoration is in 1920, but the most important is the last one from 2010 until 2020. It was paid by the city of Payerne, the canton of Vaud, and the Swiss Confederation, and all the work cost almost 20 million Swiss francs. Here on the picture you can see someone working on the wall painting. This one is a painting from 1377, but we also have a painting for the 12th centuries, and we work also on the cleaning of the wall. Here you can see the Abbey Church in 29, and there after the restoration in 2020. So you can see all the road and the park for the cars are removed, and you have all the walls are cleaning. They're small gray, black, so it's very not good thing. And all the stone was cleaned, stone by stone, with laser during 3 years. Our big problem was statics, because this church is too big, too much window. It's very beautiful inside, but there is a risk to collapse. So the city, with the architect Ivan Kolecek, put tensioned vertical bars in the outside pillars until 12 meters in the underground. And this 9 structure maintains the church together. Now we have a new visitor tour with audio guide. We have 20 points of interest, and the tour is possible since 6-year-old children. And we host numerous groups with children, adults, seniors, etc. We have in the Abbey Church a collection of fine arts, 1,500 pictures and paintings, and we work on the enhancement of this fine arts collection. Here you have an example, De Verre et d'Art. It was a 4-day event in September 2022. It's a dialogue between the long-lived stone of the Abbey Church and the short-lived flowers, and a dialogue between these two words. So the architecture of the Abbey Church, flowers, and also with a collection of paintings. Here you have a small video. Normally there's sound. Here you can see some examples. So 20 Swiss florists have a painting, and they have to imagine something with flowers about these paintings. Here is project from horticulturists and school class in Payerne. These children from 8 to 12 years old, and they work together on the architecture. So here they work on the place for a picnic, and it's a collaboration between this horticultor and the children. And here you have a giant mandala. It was started by the children of Payerne. The second day, it was the new citizen of Payerne who come and add some flowers. And during all the event, people and visitors can have flowers and come together and participate to the elaboration of this beautiful composition. Thank you for your attention.
Dear EMYA members, board, dear colleagues, it happens that Julian and we are neighbors. I'm just 30 kilometers in the backyard of Payerne with my museum that I am glad to present to you today. Voila. This is the Cantonal Museum of Fine Arts of Lausanne. You can see it is in a hot spot of the city. It's right next to the central station, a stone throw from the central station. What you cannot see is the Lake of Geneva, wonderful light, wonderful architecture. It's a landmark, as you can see, built by the Catalan architects, Barozzi Vega. And we are extremely proud to have this installation, this construction, as the host of our collection. We have 11,000 art pieces owned by the canton of Vaud in Switzerland. And this means it is from the beginning of this museum, 180 years ago, it is an ongoing democratic process in a way, because it was the idea of some persons, citoyens of the civil society, to create a museum 20 years after the creation of the Canton de Vaud, the independency of the Canton de Vaud. And this is the third space that we moved in the history of our museum. It's in 2019 that we opened, but you can see ecological terms, it is quite, how do you say, urban as a space. We have ecological items within the project. We have these solar panels on the roof, and we produce about 20% of our own energy. What is important that in this ongoing democratic process that we are going through, it is an initiative by the people, for the people, and we want ongoing discussions through history to know what is democracy, what is critics, what is art, what is the role of arts in society. And we now are in a new era. It is really a new kind of invention of this museum that we say we have the ICOM definition of museums. We discuss a lot about enjoyment, actually. This is new challenges for us. Very much important is that we have a collection and this democratic identity, this open identity of the Canton de Vaud and its people. It means that we don't have an art school, or that we don't have a concrete art history. We are always linked in the Lake of Geneva, in this area, and in the Canton de Vaud and in Lausanne. We are linked with the north and the south, with the west and the east. And this means that Swiss artists of the Canton de Vaud, they were always going abroad and then come back, and they are actually linked with what happened within the world. And this open kind of heritage is extremely important for us to project ourselves into the future. This means also that we can link in our collection exhibition. We have 350 art pieces always on stage in our 1,200 square meters area. It's for free, and it's really our collection. People come to see our artists, like Louis Sutter, which you can see. They can see even in friends coming over, like Giacometti. It's not a piece of our collection, but it's from collections in the area. What is important is also that we are a kind of a dialogue forum for citizens, that art is a kind of social commitment. Here you have Julien Charrière, very famous, coming from the Swiss part of Switzerland, and you can see here a pyramid made out of coconuts, uncovered by lead, and it's a monument for atomic tests in the Pacific. So it means no radioactivity in the museum, but it is a piece that provokes discussions. We are, in our changing exhibitions, extremely proud that we have a high level of expertise, of international artists coming, of collaborations with other museums and institutions. Like here we have with the Tate together organized a show with Lubaina Himit, Black British art presented in Switzerland for the first time in this way. What is important is mediation. We are quite proud that we have for 14 years now a program with engagement in social society that we make with cultural ambassadors, volunteers, a program that people who are not really connected to museums from a social point of view or a historical point of view, they become ambassadors, they're trained, and then they invite their peers to come to the museum. What we have also is a program Carte Blanche, where we work together with youngsters to prepare one evening, and what is important, that they bring their own friends to the museum. And this is a kind of long-time commitment. We prepare one evening with these 25 youngsters for about 6 months. We are working with the volunteers in an ongoing educational training program, so that for every year they have new appointments to collaborate with the museum, to dialogue with the museum, which is extremely important. Another topic is the Friends of the museum. We have about 1,000 members of Friends. This means that when we have vernissage, people really come and join us. The anchorage is extremely important in the city, in the Canton de Vaud. So this means it's also really a public space, a common ground. Now we are not alone anymore. Since the last year, we opened a next building, another building by Iris Matthäus, constructed for the Swiss, the Cantonal Design Museum, Le MUDAC, and the Photo Museum, also a cantonal institution. And we built together, the three institutions, Platform 10, under the coverage of a foundation, common foundation, which you can see here. This is the common ground, the public space between these two wonderful buildings. It's also a common ground that we share it with other cultural institutions, initiatives from the local cultural producers and international artists. We have this weekend a comic festival in our house, and what you can see, what is also a topic with climate change, that we have to vegetalize our common ground, and we are working together actually with the festival of city gardening for this year, and next year we are planting trees, and all these aspects make that we have, in a way, this openness of this kind of democratic process ongoing for 180 years, that we are ready, in a way, to cope with future, because it's a museum that belongs to the people, and it's shared by the people, and it's supported by the people, and this means that we are looking forward into a good, healthy, institutional future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I got the information that we have been running a little time, so I'm going to do some questions to you. At first, I want to say that it's amazing that these 4 institutions, with a huge impact in the social landscape in your towns and places, and the difference is because it's called the synergies between heritage and arts, but here it's more. So I want to ask you first, Sergio, about your commitment about working across all these differences, and also this new change in the idea of the museum, making more holistic in a way.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the question. Well, you know, when people ask me what I do, I always say I'm artistic director and a cultural diplomat. And in that second part, because we have 3 governments inside our governance, you also make mistakes. And one good example of these mistakes, and I will have to quote here, and I think the authors of Museum Activism book are here. They talked about the building complex. We did that also, have this idea of creating a supra building between the art museum and the farm. And then I managed to get the money from 2 governments, but then the local government said, no, we don't want that. And it was true for them actually to say that. So we had to go a step back and then say, so what do you want actually? And then we had to go talk with the neighbors, and then we had to go talk. So it really changed the managerial side of how we were building on the site that we already had. So I think that in that sense, the participatory process can also not only be about bottom up, but it can also be led by more the macro analysis behind it. So I think that is a thing that is also interesting to note, that you can, together with governments, you can also put up something in place that is for the benefit of all.
Thank you. Michelina, I was reading also your applications, and I was thinking about this to be a place of mining, and the importance of this activity in the town, and using this place to connect in generations. If you can give us an approach about how you are doing this between children and grandparents. And
yes, so what we try to achieve and what we try to convey is that the post-industrial heritage should not be seen as a burden, but as a way further. So since mining industry is still ongoing in the Silesia region, just on a smaller scale, we do have a lot of retired miners, also sometimes active miners, actually coming to visit us with their families. And what we try to convey is that what should be safeguarded is not only the material heritage, the tangible heritage that we restored and we do try to preserve as best as we can, but also the intangible heritage, the link between people and the places they used to work in, the places that are the tissue of the city for them. So in this matter, we do work a lot with oral history. We do engage sometimes ex-miners to come and, of course, after proper preparation, but be our guides on the tours, because it gives this little extra when people come and are guided by the real miner who used to operate these machines, used to work in darkness in these conditions. And well, there are many ways to achieve that. We organize events, workshops, etc. But basically we try to tell a very universal story of rise and fall of industries that people can relate on a global level, but also on a very particular level, personal level in case of our region.
thank you. And Judy, about the museum in Lausanne, and I wonder in this relationship between how you implement this relationship to the community through this amazing house and your program.
The main topic is that you can see this museum remembers me a little bit of Barcelona. Huh? It's not a playful architecture, and our topic is how people get in the museum. But once they're in the museum, they're extremely glad and happy, and it's wonderful. But to accept this kind of new landmark and to say, it's my museum. This is the most important approach. And that's why we work so intensively with communities in the city and in the canton. And to this, for example, this project, Carte Blanche, with young volunteers, to be credible and to make them feel at home. And this takes time. That's why I said it's so important to have long-term commitments. And working through 6 months on a one evening, one shot, and then 2,000 youngsters come who'd never come to museums usually, and you have an introduction speech by one youngster, young man, 60 years old, with tattoos and so on, and he says, "Welcome to my museum." This is the moment when you realize it works. And I think we are there because it is it was a democratic, or it is a democratic process to have built this new museum. It's still a museum, and because this is, after I will stop, this is so important because Lausanne, they had to wait for 120 years to have the new museum. And with this imaginary museum that Lausanne and the citizens of Lausanne had in their mind, in their dreams, now they got it. And now it's our job to create this dialogue, to make the invitations, and to be credible also in co-productions, co-creations, dialogues with all the citizens. And this is something that it's a democratic process for the next 120 years. And this means that institutions as our general museum, arts museum, has a long future, I suppose.
Thank you. And Juliana, I had the opportunity to visit your museum, and it was I was laughing all the time about very serious topics, and I want to ask you about the reactions about using humor, a huge level of humor to communicate.
Yeah. Yes. It's a choice we made with the team who work on the audio guide, because in the mind of the people, you say, okay, today we're going to visit a church. Oh, boring. And so we can make an audio guide with a strong voice, with a Gregorian voice. Welcome in the Abbey Church of Payerne. We are very serious. This is a church. Here we pray. But we make the choice to have a little girl who travel in the church and in the time. And she can see, okay, I see people on the wall. Yeah, and a narrator explain, it's the Christ with people, but he's on the ground. Why is like he was sleeping? No, it's not sleeping. And it's sweet for people because they are not learning something. They are not hearing a teacher. They hear a story, and it's a narrative story. And for the kids too, we have children from 6 years, and sometimes I say to the parents, okay, for the audio guide, you can make the 2, the 3, not the 4 is a little too long, 5. So they make the half of the audio guide, and in the end, the children say, hey, we don't do everything, so we have to come back, and we make all the visit, and we have children who make 1 hour and a half or 2 hours of visit, and sometimes the parents are, okay, we can go, it's finished, we can go. And the children have yes, fun times in the Abbey Church, and they don't know, but they're learning something. And for the children in Payerne, they can receive the Abbey Church and say, it's our Abbey Church, this is ours from the city of Payerne, yeah.
Thank you. We are running time. I want to say thank you so much, and please, all the questions that your colleagues are, answer after in the coffee break. Thank you.